Hello friends and welcome to Sustainable Prepping, your home for fear-free emergency preparedness and a sustainable life. My name is Brecky and today we are going to be talking about how low-waste living really is emergency preparedness living. If you're new here, I want to say a great big welcome. I'm so glad you found my slice of the internet. And if you're not new, I want to say welcome back. I make videos twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays that are going to teach you everything you need to know about how to build the bridge from a sustainable life to a life that's full of emergency preparedness and the other direction. I hope you will join me by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the bell icon so you never miss any of my sustainable living and emergency preparedness content. So there's a lot of conversation about low-waste living as one of the most important aspects of a sustainable lifestyle. Sustainable being a lifestyle that seeks to sustain the planet and human life and the life of other creatures on the planet. And so low-waste living, that is cutting down on the amount of waste in our consumerism, in our systems, in our lifestyles, is touted as an essential component to sustainable living. Now we could talk a little bit about the nuances and the ins and out of low-waste living, and I'll make sure I include a couple of low-waste YouTubers so that you can get a greater insight from folks who specialize in low-waste living. Suffice it to say, low-waste living is about taking things that are single use or very few uses and trying to replace them or maximize their use to keep things out of landfills, to keep our systems from having unnecessary redundancy or trash or waste, right? Low waste, and to do this with an eye towards environmentalism. Now you might think, how on earth can low-waste living actually prepare you for emergencies? Well, I've got 5 ways that low-waste living really does set you up to be prepared for emergencies. And if you're someone who's already striving to live low-waste, 5 ways that you are already prepared for those inevitable future emergencies. The first way is through creating closed systems, or mostly closed systems. This is the idea that particularly in your household, you're creating a system in which you're not constantly having to replace items. For example, if you replace all of your paper towels with reusable rags, or if you repurpose an old t-shirt and you cut it up into reusable rags, you have created a closed system where you're not constantly needing the input, i.e. new paper towels, to keep the system running. These closed systems often are more robust and more able to handle stressors like inflation, for example, than open systems that need constant replenishment. Now, this is a micro example, but you can pull this up to the macro. For example, if you have a closed system as far as energy because you have solar panels or hydroelectric power, or you figured out a way to live without very much electricity at all, or you bike to work rather than drive a car to work, for example, this is a way that you have a closed system. You don't need to constantly have inputs. I want to put a caveat here that solar panels and bikes need replacement parts, of course, but in your everyday life, your system is closed. You don't have to go constantly get gas in the car. You don't have to constantly pay for your electrical bill. These systems can be broadened out, of course, at the macro scale when we're talking about our food, our industrialization processes, things like that. But on the micro scale, on the individual scale, having these closed systems, not having to buy paper towels or gas or electric, for example, these are all ways in which you create a system that is more sustainable at the household level. This sustainable system will be most likely to stay in place and have the least amount of disturbances when an emergency hits. Emergencies often disrupt supply chains, and so if you are less dependent on the supply chain, even a little less dependent, you're less likely to have a fallout emergency, sort of a ripple effect emergency from a catastrophe in one area. So a closed system in which you have a lot of reusable, renewable resource, right, inside your system, something as simple as, again, paper towels, not using paper towels, using rags, that is a way that your at-home system, your lifestyle system, is more resilient in the face of emergencies. The second way that folks who are low waste often are already prepared for emergencies is through bulk buying. When you purchase in bulk, you have less packaging, which means less waste. If you purchase in bulk, you're also probably going to get a better price per pound or ounce of the item that you are purchasing. You're also going to cut down on the cost of moving the item. For example, if you were to order 50 pounds of black beans from a wholesale retailer, you're going to cut down on those black beans having to then go to a grocery store and then go to your house. So you're cutting out that middleman. This is a way in which you cut out redundancy and you cut out waste in the entire system. Bulk buying means that you usually have supplies on hand and that you are maximizing the amount you are getting for your dollar. This is something that low waste folks have been doing for ages. They've been buying in bulk, they have buying clubs. Sometimes there are bulk buying stores where you just go and fill up the jar that you bring from a bulk bin. All of these are ways in which you are participating in a bulk buying system that cuts down on the waste of packaging as well as on the waste of shipping. This is an emergency preparedness staple. In fact, anybody who is worth their salt in the emergency preparedness community is going to tell you bulk buying is an essential way of getting your emergency food storage in place. Particularly for dry goods like beans and rice, bulk buying is a cost-effective tool for getting those essentials in place. The only difference really between the emergency preparedness person and the low waste person is that the emergency preparedness person will then package those items in such a way that they are intended to be used 10, 20, 30 years down the road, whereas the low waste person will probably incorporate them immediately into a working pantry. If you are low waste and you're thinking about ways to be more emergency prepared, then I would suggest taking some of that bulk buying and packaging it up and having it stored for later. But the principle is the same. So you're already participating in an emergency preparedness system, or if you're somebody who's in emergency preparedness that already does serious bulk buying, you are already participating in a way of living low waste. Win-win, right? The third way that low waste living folks are participating in emergency preparedness lifestyle and don't even know it is that they tend to buy quality and repair. That's right. When you decide to invest in a really good pair of shoes, for example, and just have the soles replaced every 5 or so years, you are participating in a system that limits the amount of waste. Every time you buy something that you wear out very quickly and then throw in a landfill, you are participating in a very waste-filled system. Fast fashion is that way, and we're all guilty of participating in fast fashion. My t-shirt came from Old Navy and probably only last a couple of years, though I do have some shirts I've had for like a decade, so it just kind of depends. But the point is that fashion is a place where we have a ton of waste. Most clothes that you donate to like a thrift store don't actually end up at the thrift store, they end up in landfills. And unless you participate in a recycling program, we are having a huge amount of waste just from clothing, let alone food and electronics and appliances. Think about how quickly electronics and appliances break these days, or programmed redundancy in which you have your smartphone programmed that after 4 to 6 years, it's not going to let you update it to keep using it, even if it is still working. These are ways in which we have a system that intends for us to have waste, because as long as there's waste, there's more spending to replace the thing that's being wasted. When you have a low waste lifestyle, in as much as you can, you buy something very high quality that can be repaired. So it might mean buying a special type of blender that has the ability to be repaired and repaired and repaired. Theoretically, Vitamixes are this way. For example, you can send them back to the manufacturer and they will fix something that's broken and send it back to you for, I guess, the first 25 years of the life of the machine. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. The point is that when a low waste lifestyle person invests in a piece of clothing or invests in a piece of electronics or in an appliance, there's often an eye to quality, with that quality being something that can be repaired. In an emergency preparedness mindset, this means that you can invest once and inevitably fix the piece as long as you can get parts for it. This is a great lifestyle change because it means that you don't have to rely on a system to constantly be bringing you in replacements. Again, like that first one, this creates a more closed loop, not a totally closed loop, but it's a more closed loop because we're not having to constantly input. In addition, if you have appliances, for example, that can be repaired and you learn how to repair them yourself, you're building an essential skill. So this is kind of a 2-for-1. You're creating a more closed loop, and you can be teaching yourself an essential skill if you actually learn how to repair the things that you purchase. And we preppers are all about those essential skills. Am I right? Am I right? Number 4 in a low waste lifestyle is that trash is the enemy. And this is also true for emergency preparedness. we want to create systems in which we don't have a lot of trash. Now, for the low waste lifestyle person, this really is about wanting to protect the planet and keep things out of landfills, and that trash is a symbol of waste in your system. For the emergency preparedness person, however, trash can be linked to how much you have. People can learn a lot about your preps from your trash, and if we're in an emergency, we don't want people to know that we have 27 cans of black beans in our basement, right? We want to keep that a secret. So finding ways to reduce and reuse within our systems to keep trash down before the emergency means that we're less likely to have trash during an emergency. Additionally, trash can attract pests, it can attract bacteria, right? You can have illnesses that are born out of trash heaps. So when we're talking about emergencies, preventing trash is a whole area that a lot of folks haven't even thought about. If you already go into it as somebody who is low waste, having little trash to begin with, even if you doubled your trash output, you wouldn't have that much. So it's a great thing now for those of us in the emergency preparedness community to start looking at how low waste folks create a system with very little trash in order to start implementing that and borrowing those ideals for our own systems. That way, when the emergency comes, we're not dealing with trash, we're not dealing with pests, we're not dealing with people looking through our trash, and we're not dealing with the illnesses that are born from having an abundance of trash and nowhere to put it. Everybody wins, now and in the future. The fifth way that living low waste is also emergency preparedness is that you are a local yokel. And what that really means is that you are very intentionally supporting local systems and local producers. You're going to do your best to support local farmers of all stripes, whether you eat meat and dairy or you're getting your fruit and veg for the most part from local producers. If you are low waste, you are wanting to shrink the mileage of how far your goods and services have to go. So supporting local food systems is a key component in as much as you can, but supporting local shops, small businesses where you are knowing that they are putting in good practices, that they are paying their workers fairly. All of these things support a local economy. This actually also plays into point number 3 about repairing your different electronics and appliances. Local systems that have repair shops or repair co-ops or maker spaces with folks who can teach you how to repair things, like these are local systems that create a ton of resilience in your community. Not only are you learning a skill, but someone has a skill, someone has a trade and an income generating, space for themselves that then keeps things out of the waste stream. I mean, it's such a good system. If people in the emergency preparedness community got on board and made these same investments, one, it would explode these small local economies and really support them so that they're more resilient in the face of uncertainty. Two, it would regenerate new local economies in places where they don't necessarily exist, because the kinds of people that live low waste don't necessarily live where there's a lot of preppers, right? If we simplified it and broke it into liberals and conservatives, which is a simple oversimplification, okay? It is. But if we did that, or if we made it urban versus rural, these communities that are more heavily prepper related may not have some of these systems that the low waste folks have. And if we can borrow those good ideas, that means more small communities have access to some of these local systems, local food, local repair and supply, local skill sharing. All of these make for better, resilient local economies. And if you have a resilient local economy, you have an economy and a local area that is more likely to bounce back from an emergency, no matter how bad that emergency is. The more people who are prepared, even a little bit, with supplies and skills, the better an entire community is going to be in responding to a disaster. So as we're thinking about this bridge between sustainable living to emergency preparedness, I want us to remember that there is so much that we can learn from one another. Low waste folks can look and see how their own systems can be applied to a preparedness lifestyle, preparing for these future disasters, while emergency preparedness folks can look at what low waste lifestyle folks are doing today to incorporate as they prepare for resiliency in the future. We can learn a lot, and I want to use this space to build this bridge. If you are someone who's low waste and you have some ideas for the emergency preparedness community, I'd love for you to leave them down below. And if you're someone in emergency preparedness that would love to give some of your ideas to a low waste lifestyle folk, then I'd love for you to leave your ideas below. The comment section is a great place where we can learn from one another. Friends, it is September, which means in the United States, it's Emergency Preparedness Month. And I want to remind you that my course, Food Storage in a Weekend, the ultimate guide to getting an entire month of food storage done in just one weekend, is still up and you can grab it now. I also have an inventory if you want to just jump in and get some quick inventorying done. It has hyperlinks. It is just everything that you need to get that going. They are all going to be in the description, as well as where you can come hang out with me online and Instagram and on the Facebook page. I really hope that we can keep this conversation going. It is a passion of mine to unite sustainable living folks and emergency preparedness folks, and this is the kind of video content that I love to do. I hope that you are all having a great day. I hope that you're feeling more prepared and you are doing it from a place of calm and confidence. And until the next video, happy prepping.